My name's Tom, and I'm a 50-year-old guy from Chicago. A couple of years back, I went through a divorce with my wife, Lydia. She was 47 at the time. We'd been married for 20 years and had built a life together. Our son, Lucas, is 19 now and off studying in a different city. I run a small business that keeps me comfortable. I met Lydia almost 25 years ago in Chicago. One of those random Friday nights that somehow change your life forever. I was out with my buddies, tossing back drinks and enjoying myself, when I spotted her across the room. There was something about her, this magnetic energy that made it impossible to look away. I didn't think twice. I got up, walked over, and struck up a conversation. From the first words we exchanged, we hit it off. It was effortless. She was sharp, witty, and had this spark about her, like she could light up any room she walked into. I was captivated. We spent the whole night talking, and by the time we parted ways, I knew there was something there. Not long after, we started seeing each other. What began as a chance encounter turned into late-night phone calls, long walks, and lazy weekends together. Our bond grew deeper with each passing day, and a couple of years later, I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. I proposed to her under a sprawling oak tree in Millennium Park, a spot that felt straight out of a fairy tale. Lydia said yes, and we celebrated with a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by family and close friends. Life was good. My business was thriving, and money was never an issue. Living in Chicago, I made sure Lydia had the kind of lifestyle most people only dream about. Luxury trips, fine dinners, expensive clothes. I wanted her to have it all. Lydia's circle of friends, though, was always a thorn in my side. Most of them were married to wealthy men, living lives that seemed glamorous but always came with strings attached. Their marriages were short-lived, and the divorces came with massive alimony checks. I never liked those women. I made my feelings clear to Lydia, told her to keep her distance, but she always brushed it off. "They'll never come between us," she'd say. "I love our family." Still, I hated picking Lydia up from their parties. There were nights when her so-called friends crossed the line. A few even tried flirting with me. I never told Lydia. I ignored it and moved on. But those moments stayed with me. For a while, life just went on like that. Lydia would go out, post on social media, and assure me everything was fine. I trusted her. I wanted to believe her words more than my instincts. Then came Lydia's 45th birthday. That night changed everything. She told me she wanted to go out with her friends because one of them was leaving town. I wasn't thrilled. I'd hoped to celebrate her birthday together, but she insisted, so I let her go. I spent the evening alone, nursing a bottle of Jack Daniels, thinking about how things used to be. Later that night, Lydia's birthday party started streaming live on Instagram. I clicked on it, and what I saw made my stomach turn. Her friends had brought out a cake, shaped like a man's private part, covered in white cream for dramatic effect. Lydia laughed, cheered, and took a bite of it like it was some big joke. The whole room erupted into applause. It didn't end there. They went to a male strip club after, and I watched bits of it unfold through clips and photos her friends posted online. When Lydia got home, I couldn't hold back. I told her straight up how disgusted I was. I told her that she wasn't just embarrassing herself, she was embarrassing our family. "We have a 19-year-old son, Lydia. Do you think this kind of behavior reflects well on him? On us?" She tried to explain. She said the strip club was a surprise, something she didn't plan. I wasn't having it. "Walking through that door was your choice," I told her. "A surprise doesn't mean you have to go along with it." I laid it all out for her. Her actions didn't reflect those of a married woman, and her friends were toxic influences. Lydia started crying. I was too angry to deal with it, so I left her alone that night. I didn't sleep in our bedroom. The next morning, she didn't say a word to me. She grabbed her gym bag and left like nothing happened. I went to work, but the tension followed me like a cloud. I could feel the shift in our marriage, like something had cracked and no amount of glue could hold it together. 2 weeks later, I brought it up again. I asked her, calmly, if she was still upset about that night. That's when she hit me with something I didn't see coming. "You're just jealous," she said. "You don't have friends, Tom. You'll never understand what it's like to have amazing nights like that." I was stunned. Jealous? I didn't go to strip clubs because I was married. I didn't bite into ridiculous cakes because I had dignity. What the hell are you talking about, Lydia? I asked. She shrugged it off, like my feelings didn't matter. Things didn't exactly improve after that. We started talking again, sure, but it wasn't the same. Lydia became more glued to her phone, more active on TikTok. Her daily vlogs were getting attention, and she seemed to be chasing likes and followers like they were her new family. I stopped watching her videos. I couldn't stand to see what she was becoming. When my birthday rolled around, I spent it with Lucas. Lydia was there too, physically, but her mind was elsewhere. Half the time, she was on her phone, smiling at the screen instead of at us. That's when I realized something was broken between us, and deep down, I knew it was never going to be fixed. Lucas, my son, picked up on everything. Kids are sharp like that. After my birthday, as we drove home, he looked at me and said, "Dad, what's wrong with Mom?" I let out a dry laugh, shaking my head. She's been bitten by the social media bug. That's what's wrong. We laughed it off, but deep down it hurt. Lydia wasn't the woman I married anymore. On our way home, something inside me just snapped. I pulled the car over on the side of the highway. Lucas looked confused, but I was beyond caring. I turned to Lydia and told her to step out of the car. "What now, Tom?" she said, sighing like I was inconveniencing her. I didn't yell. I didn't want Lucas to see me lose my temper, but I was seething inside, and I kept my voice calm as I spoke. "Step out, Lydia." She did, but instead of engaging with me, she took out her phone and started filming the view. Like the family meltdown happening behind her wasn't worth her time. That was it. I walked over, took her phone, and ended the stream. I handed it back to her, looking her dead in the eye. "Listen," I said, my voice steady. "Start drawing a line, Lydia. When you're with family, be with family. We deserve your attention, not your phone, not your audience. Otherwise, don't bother coming along." She stared at me silently. For the first time in a long time, she didn't have a snappy comeback. She got back in the car quietly, and we drove home in total silence. That moment should have been a wake-up call, but it wasn't. A year passed, and things continued to unravel. Lydia's obsession with social media grew, and we drifted further apart. When her birthday rolled around again, I stayed up until midnight to wish her. I handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond-studded gold bracelet, something I'd spent weeks picking out. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and for a second, I saw a glimpse of the woman I married. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Minutes later, she was out the door, dressed up and heading off to meet her friends. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the clock as the hours crawled by. When Lydia came back late that night, she was drunk. I didn't say much. I knew better than to expect any meaningful conversation when she was like that. The next morning, I tried again. "Lydia, can we talk?" I asked over breakfast. "I think we need help. I don't know if we're going to make it if things stay the way they are." She barely looked up from her glass of juice. "I'm late for the gym," she mumbled, grabbed her bag and left. That day, I didn't go to work. I sat at home, waiting for her to come back. I needed answers. I needed to know what she wanted, what we were even holding on to anymore. Later that afternoon, she walked in with her friends, laughing like nothing had happened. I didn't care about the awkwardness. I stood up, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "Lydia, we need to talk. Alone. Now." Her friends went quiet, staring at me like I just flipped a table. Lydia sighed dramatically, but followed me to the bedroom. I shut the door behind us and turned to face her. "What do you want, Lydia?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "Do you even want this marriage anymore? Are you willing to fight for it, or am I the only one trying?" She sat down on the edge of the bed, her face unreadable. Then, she dropped the bombshell. "I've been thinking about divorcing you for 2 years now." It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I couldn't speak. Finally, I managed. "What? Why?" She shrugged, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. "I want to start over, Tom. I want a new life, and my friends are helping me figure that out." That's when I lost it. "Your friends?" I spat, my voice rising. "Your friends are a pack of bitter witches who live off alimony and spend their days chasing rich men. You think they have the answers?" "Lydia, Take a good look at them. Under those fake smiles and glitter, they're miserable and lonely. She didn't react, so I kept going. You think the world out there is sunshine and roses? It's not, Lydia. It's wolves and hyenas. They'll tear you apart and leave you with nothing. You think you're starting over, but all you're doing is walking into a trap. Lydia didn't flinch. She just sat there, looking at the floor like she didn't hear a word I said. I was out of breath, out of fight, and out of hope. Well, I said finally, my voice breaking, if that's what you want, then go. But don't come running back when it all falls apart, because I won't be here. For the first time in my life, I realized that the woman sitting in front of me, the woman I'd loved for over 2 decades, was already gone. The next day, Lydia didn't waste time making her decision public. She posted a video on TikTok with a somber look on her face, her voice soft, as if she were confessing some great truth. I've been planning my divorce for the last 2 years, she said, and now, I'm finally getting what I wanted. I don't know what's next, but I'm being honest about it. I'm just tired. Tired of trying. I'm scared too. Maybe a little, maybe a lot. I watched the video, shaking my head. Scared? Lydia had no idea what fear was. This was just the beginning. Reality was warming up, and when it hit, it would come at her with all guns blazing. Days passed. Lydia started calling me, multiple times. At first, I ignored her, but eventually, I answered. She sounded small, hesitant. I just want to talk, Tom. I miss you. For a moment, I felt something stir, a faint, foolish hope. So, I tried one last time. Lydia, tomorrow the divorce papers are being filed. This is the last chance. Do you want to reconsider? Because once we file them, there's no turning back. She went quiet. A long silence stretched between us, and then she hung up without saying another word. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Lydia packed up and moved out. There were no goodbyes, no tears, just silence. We became strangers overnight. My son, Lucas, took it as well as he could. He sat me down one evening and said, "I'm not surprised, Dad. I saw this coming a long time ago. Mom's been different." A day after the divorce, Lydia was back at it. She posted another video on social media, this time trying to sound reflective and philosophical. "I'm doing okay," she said, her voice shaky but hopeful. "A week ago, I couldn't see any light. Everything felt dark. But now, it's like tiny pricks of light, like poking holes in aluminum foil. It's not enough to see what's on the other side, but it's enough to remind me that there's light there. I'm getting closer every day." I snorted when I heard that. "Good luck poking your foil, Lydia," I muttered under my breath. But the next video really made me laugh, in that sad, bitter way you do when you've seen it all. Lydia was all dolled up, standing in a bikini near a pool, showing off her body. "This is what 47 looks like," she announced, her tone proud. And then she dropped her Tinder link. Out of morbid curiosity, I clicked the profile. There she was, nearly naked, barely covered by scraps of clothing, posing like she was in some men's magazine. It was ridiculous. Part of me wanted to feel anger or embarrassment, but I felt nothing but pity. Not long after, Lydia posted another video. This time, she was out with some young guy. Early 20s, maybe, chiseled jaw, six-pack abs. But even he seemed embarrassed to be there. The moment he realized Lydia was filming, he pulled his hoodie up and turned his back to the camera. "That's a red flag," I said to myself. Guys like him aren't interested in love. They're in it for the free ride and the fun, and when that runs out, so do they. Sure enough, a few days later, Lydia was crying on camera again. "We broke up," she choked out, mascara running down her face. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. A mutual friend of ours told me that Lydia didn't break up with the guy. He dumped her. He ghosted her, leaving her embarrassed and ashamed. Of course, she couldn't admit that to her followers, so she played the victim, spinning it into yet another lesson about growth and self-love. But Lydia didn't learn. Not really. It wasn't long before I saw her again. This time in person. I was at a restaurant for a business meeting when I spotted her across the room. She was with another guy, another young buck who looked like he belonged in a gym ad. They were laughing, Lydia holding onto him like he was her lifeline. I wrapped up my meeting quickly and slipped out without her noticing. Watching her with another man should have stung, but it didn't. Not anymore. I didn't feel anger, jealousy, or regret. I felt nothing. That's when it hit me. I was free. The woman sitting across the restaurant wasn't the Lydia I married all those years ago. That Lydia was long gone. This woman was chasing something she'd never catch: validation, youth, a fantasy that didn't exist. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. Lydia's life was her own now, and whatever happened to her next wasn't my problem. A few weeks later, a friend of mine shared another video with me. I didn't want to watch it. I had already seen enough, but curiosity got the better of me. The video was titled 40 and Naughty. My stomach turned even before I clicked play. There was Lydia, dancing in her lingerie, her face plastered with that same forced smile she'd been wearing for months. The camera panned around, showing her so-called friends in the background, clapping and cheering her on like it was the greatest performance of their lives. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, Lydia took things a step further. She pulled her top off. It looked like it was filmed at a private party in someone's house. A room full of women egging each other on, pushing Lydia further into this downward spiral. I watched for maybe 10 seconds before shutting it off. That was enough. I blocked the friend who sent it to me. A couple of days later, TikTok hit me with yet another one of Lydia's videos. This time, she stood by a pool, wearing a bright bikini, her arms outstretched as if she were some kind of goddess. "This is what 47 looks like," she announced with exaggerated pride, twirling around to show her figure. I shook my head, but then I noticed something else. In the caption, Lydia shared a link to her Tinder profile. I don't know what possessed me, but I clicked it. And there she was, almost naked again, posing provocatively, wearing just enough to keep things borderline decent. Her bio was filled with lines like, "Looking for fun, not drama," and "Living my best life at 47. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel embarrassed. All I felt was pity. I thought to myself, this is what you left everything for? It wasn't long after that another video surfaced. Lydia was out with yet another young guy, a man who couldn't have been older than his early 20s. He had the chiseled body and looks she clearly loved showing off. But something was off. As soon as Lydia turned her camera toward him, his expression changed. I watched as he pulled his hoodie up over his head, clearly annoyed and trying to avoid the attention. There it is, I thought. He's just there for a free ride, and he'll be gone the moment the fun stops. Sure enough, a few days later, Lydia was crying on TikTok again. "We broke up," she said between sniffles, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I'm trying, but nothing feels right. I don't even know if I regret my decisions, but maybe I do. I don't know." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Later, a mutual friend told me the real story. Lydia hadn't broken up with the guy. He dumped her. He ghosted her without warning, and she was too ashamed to admit it publicly. That part didn't surprise me. It never lasts when people are only looking for surface-level fun. Not long after, Lydia was back at it again. I was at a restaurant, having a meeting with a client, when I saw her walk in with another man. This one looked like he was ripped straight from the cover of a fitness magazine. Young, confident, and clearly playing his role. Lydia laughed and held onto his arm as if everything in her world was perfect. I kept my head down, finished the meeting, and left as quickly as I could. Lydia never saw me, and that was fine by me. Watching her with someone else should have hurt, but it didn't. It didn't sting like I thought it would. And that's when I knew I was finally free. The woman in that restaurant wasn't my wife, not anymore. Lydia had become someone I didn't recognize, someone chasing after youth and validation she would never find. The Lydia I married, the one I built a life with, was long gone. I drove home that night to the only companion I needed, my Saint Bernard. He greeted me at the door like he always did, tail wagging, eyes full of loyalty. I sat on the couch with a drink in my hand and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. I started hearing less and less about Lydia after that. But every now and then, something would pop up. A video, a story, or a rumor. She posted another video a week later, looking tired and worn down. "I made a decision," she said to her followers, her voice quieter this time. Do I regret it? I don't know. Did I mess up? I guess it wasn't that bad. But today, I think my marriage was fine. My husband loved me, and I screwed it all up. I'm a mess, and Tom warned me. He told me this would happen, but I didn't listen. I just want my old life back. I miss my family. I miss him. I leaned back and shook my head. You were warned, Lydia. You didn't listen. A few days later, Lydia walked into my office. She looked different, hollow, like a shadow of herself. What are you doing here? I asked her flatly. I want to come back home, she said quietly, almost like she was embarrassed. I couldn't help but chuckle. Home? Lydia, there is no home. I sold it. I used the money to fund your so-called Nirvana pad, the place you wanted so badly. There's nothing left for you to come back to. Her face crumpled, but she pushed on. Can I stay with you? I shook my head, a smile playing at my lips. No. I share my bed with a loyal Saint Bernard now, and he doesn't like strangers near me. I'm not a stranger, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. To him, you are. And to me? You're someone I used to know. Lydia, you made your choice. You walked away from everything we built. That door is closed. She cried as she left, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. A few days later, Lydia posted one last video. Her voice was heavy with regret. I had this idea of the world, she said, staring into the camera, but I was wrong. It's not what I thought it would be. It's hard for a woman my age to find love again. I thought I'd be happy, but I'm not. I watched the video once, then turned it off. Nature teaches us everything we need to know. If you leave a ripe fruit on the branch too long, it rots. Lydia ignored what she had, and now she was left out in the cold. As for me, I'm done chasing love. I have my son, my dog, and my peace. I'll pass my business to Lucas one day when he's ready, and I'll live out the rest of my days in the woods, soaking up the sunshine. That's enough for me. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel,